Hey guys, John here, and welcome back to 100 Sound Design Tips. This is video 7. Today we're talking about what are LFOs, why do I need them, and why are they so awesome? So in any synthesizer that you get, you're most likely, at least I would hope so, have an LFO with a lot of different shapes. So let's kind of dive into that. So here in Avenger, let's go to Menu, Initialize, and we just have our saw wave. And as we start building patches, let's do something kind of like here. Have some unison, maybe add some more voices to this. Maybe bring some of those voices up some octaves. That's kind of cool. Okay, we have something like this, and one thing that's really cool about sound design is the constant motion, the change over time, and that's really especially important in pads, something like that. So, for example, if we have something like a quick pad, let's do our attack kind of high and our release kind of high as well. We have a pad. And let's do some type of nice filter. Maybe for this one, maybe let's go to a Nexus Low Pass 24. And also, let's go to our EQ and kind of just shave some of that low end off a little bit here. So we have this here. Now, if we just had this cutoff stationary and it's just not doing anything, that would be kind of boring. That's basically going to be the whole sound. However, if we did something slow, right, something like that, that could be more interesting. It could hold the listener's attention a little bit longer. So let's do that. Let's go to our LFO and let's drag and drop this on the cutoff. And in the mod matrix, let's give it some depth here. Now this would drive me nuts how fast that's going. So in our LFO, let's take this off the tempo sync and kind of dial in something a little bit slower here. So like 0.10 is kind of cool. Now, so this is moving this left and right in accordance to this shape. This is a sine wave. So remember how we talked about shapes before? We had the sine wave, the triangle wave, the square wave, and the saw wave. Now we can do this here, so we can change these shapes, but just keep in mind that we have the ability to do so, and each different shape is going to be a drastic difference on things. So the sine wave is kind of nice. It doesn't necessarily sound as a modulation source as smooth as something like a triangle would be. So if we can right click here, we have all these different shapes to pick from. So we can go for a triangle, for example. So now it's not going to be so roundish, right? It's going to follow this linear up, then down, then up, then down again. So the moment it hits the highest peak here, it's just going to drop right back down. So that's what we have here. If we did something maybe like, let's do a saw or something like that, going downwards to ramp down. It's going to keep going down here. And then as it gets to the bottom, it just snaps up to that next value. So in this case, this might not be the coolest type of modulation source for a pad. For this, I would probably go with something random. And here we have two different options. Do we want a random that's kind of sample and hold, right? So there's a value, and as soon as we change to the next value, it just jumps to the next one, which is going to be this guy, which can sound a little jarring for a sound like this, but we should take a listen anyway. So that little jump right there, if we make this a little faster, we can kind of go, we can see this a little better. Now, maybe that's an effect that you're going for, and cool, now you know how to get to it. But for something a little smoother, we can get this randomness, but also get it smooth. So it's kind of like the triangle where we have a new spot, a new value, and then it's going to start doing the next one linearly, which is kind of cool. So we have something like this. Let's bring this back down to slower. And that seems to me a little bit more smooth. Now we can add some delay here or some reverb, and then maybe go to Abyss. This is a really cool algorithm as well. And then increase some of our shimmer feedback. Okay, so now we have kind of a cool, let's bring this decay down a little bit, it's a little much here. So now we have this cool pad we're going through, and now we're using this LFO and we're changing the cutoff, but there's so many more things that we can modulate and move over time. Now, something that also might be interesting is if we got another LFO and we don't necessarily want these to be the exact same speed, but we want them to be maybe the same shape. So again, let's go to this triangle, let's take this off sync. And this guy, we did 0.10. So maybe this guy, we can go 0.13, just so they're different speeds. It's all that difference and that change over time. So what would happen if we have this signal and we kind of maybe just move some of the harmonics around a little bit like that? So if we did some changes kind of like this here, like that, or even maybe gone to bin if we want to get a little bit more in depth, but for now, let's just stay here with harmonic, and we want to move this around, and we have this end sweep knob, and we can move these like that, right? So let's make this maybe a little bit more drastic, something kind of like that, maybe make it interesting. So now we have this shape. So if we move this knob as well with this second LFO, let's drag it here, and then we can also add a little bit of depth. So this is going to move, as you can see, kind of slowly, and let's play the same chord again. So now we have two things that are kind of changing over time to make this a little bit more interesting. We can maybe even give it a little bit more depth, something kind of crazy. And that's just holding down one chord, and that's kind of just doing that thing as well. So we think, okay, what else could we change? So maybe we can use this same LFO and maybe put this on the pan, since this one here is a bipolar signal. This one is as well. We can change it here, but for now, I think it's kind of okay. But let's use LFO2 and let's put this on the pan and kind of just increase this. But keep in mind, we are adding unison and these are fully panned. So if we want this effect to be a little bit stronger, we can probably bring down our pan just a little bit. And we're going to have this pan start to move. Okay. So now we have three things. We have the cutoff getting moved. We have these harmonics slowly getting moved as well. And then now we're moving the pan. So far we have two LFOs and we have three things that are getting modulated. What else could we do? Maybe we want something like adding maybe some type of saturation, or maybe making the sound kind of evolve sonically a little bit more over time. So if we added, maybe we could do this after the reverb, but let's say we have some multi-band distortion. And maybe this is a target parameter we want to hit. So as time goes on, maybe we increase this a little bit more. Something like that here. So maybe we can use LFO. You know what? Let's make another LFO because I want this to actually be a unipolar signal. And this is an important spot here. So if we do the same random one here, take off tempo, maybe something like 0.15. Now this center line here, think of this as 0. Anything above it's going to be positive. Anything below it's going to be negative, which means that if we have a knob that's going left or right, this signal is going to move that left or right. But let's say we just want to move it in the positive or the negative territory. This is where a unipolar signal comes in handy. Like this here, if we want to change this mid distortion, we want this to start off at 0, and any value that changes should go positive. So in this case, we want to change the offset all the way to the right, bringing this curve above this line, giving us only positive values. And in that case, we can now drag and drop this guy to the mid distortion, and then maybe giving this some depth here. And as you can see, this is already going to start to move like that. It's a small amount. Let's do something drastic just so you can see what I'm going here, or what I'm doing here. And this might even be a little bit too fast. So let's slow this down a little bit, maybe below, maybe 0.06. So as a pad like this, what we talked about before when we're discussing the filters, it might be a good idea to give this a little bit of key tracking, because as we hit the higher notes, maybe the filter should open up a little bit more so we can get some more higher frequency content in there. Okay, so we're kind of getting here. So now we have a couple things moving. Now, in this case, if we went to our mod matrix and we disabled our LFOs, this is what we'd have at this point. It's cool. It could be fine for some cases, but it's not as cool as if we had all these enabled. Now the frequencies are kind of going away a little bit, as we can see down over here. Now they're coming back. So that's just one aspect here with pads going with these LFOs. Now let's do maybe something a little bit different. So let's say we maybe want to have the LFO moving in a certain way with some type of sound. Let's maybe make like kind of like a bass thing again. We have this here, but we want the LFO to maybe trigger it and kind of going down, 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 down. And this is where a case where the ramp down might actually be kind of cool. Now notice this is kind of going both sides, because again, this is a bipolar signal. Now let's bring this up like that. And this might be kind of a cool spot here. Let's change out the filter to the 24, a little bit of resonance like that. And this can be kind of a cool thing to modulate as well. So let's say we're doing some type of song and we have this bass kind of going here in eighth notes in this case, because we're just doing the filter like that. But we can change this. And the LFO is giving the motion to this cutoff here. And it's nice too, because this would be synced as well. So we do something like a cyber kit here. Let's make this a little bit nicer here. Let's add some EQ and do kind of our normal thing. And maybe do some compression again. Now this is kind of similar how we had the ARP going on in some previous stuff, and we're kind of cranking this envelope, but here this is just the LFO doing that. And if we want to give this a little bit more depth, that can be kind of cool. So this is where the ramp comes in. And now we have a couple different versions as well. So we have the one that's kind of going a little bit upwards. It's kind of a little bit more turned in, I guess. But for this version that we're going downwards, we can go to this guy, which has kind of a different curve. That can be cool as well. Or we can do something kind of random. Or we can do the sample and hold, which this actually might be kind of cool. And maybe to make this a little bit faster. Weird stuff to get through it that way, or maybe make it super fast. That might be kind of interesting as well. So there's a lot of weird motions that you can do, and keep in mind that when you're looking at something on the synthesizer, really depends on what you have, but if you can modulate it with an LFO, try it out. It might be something kind of cool. Even if we did something like, let's do a square kind of deal here. And in this case, we can maybe go to like the transpose and maybe give a value of like 12 or something. This can be kind of cool. Maybe let's do 24. Let's go back to 12. That's kind of a little too much. Now, depending on what you have here, let's maybe go. That's kind of cool. And then increase this really fast. Could be a weird sound. Maybe make some weird stuff. Could be weird, could be cool, could be something really strange. You could make something that you don't even like. But the point is that you know what that does, or you can try it out. It's really a lot of experimentation in that sense. Or you could do something like a makeshift vibrato. So here we have that version, and we can change it out to maybe a triangle wave. Do the same thing, put this on the transpose, and then instead of this pitch steppy here, if we go down, we can kind of find, where is it here? Maybe we can do random pitch or smooth. So there we go, transpose. There we go. And give it some depth here. So we have here now our own type of vibrato, and then we can take this off sync and then go somewhere changing the hertz, which I think this value's, what is it, 5.51. We can get pretty close to that as well. 5.52, that's fine. So now we have our own vibrato, and this is just driven by the LFO, which is essentially what's happening here. And then maybe it's a little bit too much, so maybe go to like a value of like 4. Maybe 8. 5. Maybe a little bit too much, 2. It's kind of nice. And then we make some kind of cool patch with this. Maybe 1. That's actually kind of cool there. And then for LFO, maybe we want to fade this in a little bit, which we can do, right? Fade in. That'd be kind of nice. It almost sounds like those like digital old keyboards, and make it cool with a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb. A lot of reverb. So here now we're doing the motion with the LFO on the pitch, another example as well. So there's lots of different things that you can use with LFOs, and I highly recommend to look at the different parameters you have on your synth, all these knobs, and think what would be cool to move with that. Maybe, for example, you want some reverb right here. Maybe that might be kind of cool. Maybe you might think to yourself, if I'm doing a song, maybe I want an LFO that goes on and off on 8th notes, which is turning the reverb send on and off. That might be kind of an interesting concept. And we can do that. Let's do our square, and let's go maybe 1/8. Let's drag and drop this to our reverb, make this unipolar, and then we'll give it some depth here. You could do that. Let's also remove this and let's try maybe a different effect like that. Let's say you want this multiband distortion. Maybe that might be kind of cool. Or maybe just a regular distortion. Let's go to this guy and change this to Logic. This one's kind of nasty. So maybe you want this mix to do that in time. And then again, we go to our LFO. We can drag and drop this here on the mix. Let's bring that down for now. And then for this mod, let's bring this all the way up. And now you have something kind of like that, which you could sync with some drums. And you would have that modulating. So it's not only just parameters that you see just on the front of maybe the oscillator, the filters and stuff like that. Also think what you can modulate as far as effects goes. And here there's a lot of different things that you can do. And yeah, something to think about. Let's see if there's anything else we can look up here. I think there was a, where was it? It was in one of my packs. I did something kind of like that. Let's see if we can find it here. Was it in ARP? Let's look. Where is it? Maybe I cannot find it. I have so many in here. Maybe techno. Where was that? Or that might have been in a sequence, actually. Could be. I do not know. Where are you? Might not even be in here. I don't know. If I don't find it, I'll bring this up at some point. Can't even remember what it was called. But yeah, long story short, I'll find this patch at some point and we'll talk about it a little bit later. However, I just want you to kind of drill it in your head that LFOs basically just move things over time. Whatever shape it is, that's how it's going to move that knob you attach it to. The depth parameter is how much of that shape should influence that knob. And that's kind of really just the point of it and the gist of it, just creating motion over time, which is a huge thing in any kind of sound. So next time you're listening to something, or maybe ambient, techno, whatever it is you listen to, just try to listen for the motion, the change over time in that patch. And most of the time it's going to be an LFO. It could be something like an MSEG, which we're going to save that for a later point probably in this. But essentially, it's just motion over time, and LFOs are perfect for that. You're most likely going to have a sine wave, a triangle wave, square waves. You might have some saws, depending on the synth that you have, and maybe some kind of random or noise kind of thing. That you'll see like weird squiggles on some synths, and that's just going to be like a random kind of thing. So drill that in your head. Also, if you do have Avenger, one thing I do want to bring to your attention is that we have the custom LFOs that we can use. So if you want to draw some LFO shape in here, kind of like that, and you want to use this, then you can, if you'd like to. Maybe you can drag and drop this here, bring up that, maybe make it something and that point, and then we're going to change this out to this first one, which takes this shape and applies it there. So in case you didn't know that, there's another little tip right there. You can make your own custom shapes if you'd like, if you don't want to just use these stock ones, which for the most part, the stock ones have been fine. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. Make some cool stuff with LFOs, and we'll see you in the next one.